Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free the wretched refuse of your teeming shore.
Good evening from the West Coast. It's week 8 in the NFL, and if you've been with us regularly since the start of the season, congratulations, you're doing better than a lot of starting quarterbacks around the league. In Miami, Dan Marino's still nursing knee ligaments and a bad hip, so the Dolphins are spending their second weekend with Bernie. For the 49ers, Steve Young's out with a shoulder injury, so the Super Bowl champions have called in Elvis. And here in Oakland, Vince Evans, the league's oldest quarterback, is starting at 40 in place of Jeff Hostetler. Now, just to make things interesting for Vince, the Raiders today are up against Indianapolis, the team responsible for putting Marino and Young out of action. Oh, incidentally, they've also got the #1 ranked quarterback in the league themselves at the moment in Jim Harbaugh, and the league's most impressive winning streak, having beaten the Rams, the Dolphins and the Niners in their last 3 games. The unfashionable Colts have emerged as a real force in the past month, playing strong, opportunistic defence and showing a refusal to give up on offence characterised by Jim Harbaugh, who's resurrecting his career in Indianapolis. Just starting out on a brilliant career is Marshall Faulk, last season's Rookie of the Year and a future rushing champion. The Raiders had cleaned up their act and were cleaning up this season until last week, when all their more self-destructive vices returned against the Broncos. They came off worse with a list of wounded, headed by Jeff Hostetler with a compression fracture in his neck. But they still have running back Harvey Williams, and they're still among the top 2 or 3 in the AFC. Well, joining me is a man who's not only played for both these teams, he's one of only 2 men in history to rush for 2,000 yards in a single season, the great Eric Dickerson. Eric, thanks for joining us. Now, your old team, the Colts, to start with, any one of their wins could have been written off as a fluke, but 3 in a row is hard to ignore.
Anytime you win 3 football games in the National Football League in a row, and especially if you beat good football teams like they have, you have to take them very seriously.
Now, what about the Raiders? They started this season playing great football, short passes, good running game, and no penalties. But against the Broncos, they regressed to their old bad habits.
Well, that's always been a series that when you go up to Denver, the Raiders have a tendency to play bad. And I think they went up there that night and played very badly.
What about Vince Evans coming in at quarterback?
Vince is a fine quarterback. I played with Vince. He's a strong guy. Runs very well for his age. Look for Vince to do some big things in this game today.
Talking of running, I must ask you from the runner's perspective, Harvey Williams on one side, Marshall Faulk on the other. What do you make of those 2 backs?
If I had to have one guy on my team, right now I would have to take Marshall Faulk. Not saying that the offensive line of the Raiders is not better. Of course, as a runner, I'd have to take Marshall Faulk as a runner right now.
All right, Harvey Williams is here, Marshall Faulk's here, Eric Dickerson is here, and the Violators here. I think we're ready. You know, with earthquakes, air pollution, gridlock, brush fires, Hugh Grant and Marsha Clark's hairdo to worry about, the people of LA can be forgiven for being a little bit stressed. But for those whose health insurance doesn't cover Prozac, there's always been the game to look forward to on a Sunday after a hard week. Not anymore though, because both the Rams and Raiders decided this summer to relocate to nicer neighborhoods, leaving LA as the biggest town in America with no teams.
This storm is coming like a ghost town. All the clubs are being closed down. This place is coming like a ghost town. Bands won't play no more. Too much fighting on the dance floor.
Sadly, although not altogether surprisingly in a city whose twin characteristics are sun and self-obsession, we found the community at large somewhat less than devastated when we went in search of reaction.
Honestly, I mean,
it doesn't matter really. It really doesn't.
You know, it's all football, you know, it's not really where you're from or where, you know what I'm saying? It's all about football.
Well, you know the word ambivalent?
I mean, that's really how much all I really have to say at this time.
There was the odd person, though, who was just crying out to be heard. Well, the Rams and the Raiders have both left LA, which means it has no teams left. Does that bother you at all?
You know, I'll just sing this song. Here we go. Too much steak and chocolate cake. Too much steak and chocolate cake. Too much booze and TV news.
Steak, chocolate cake, football, it was beginning to make sense. The sense being that everything in LA eventually gets turned into material.
Free TV show tickets!
From the NBC studios in Burbank, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Welcome to the show.
Folks, you realize what's happening? The Raiders have gone to Oakland. The Rams have moved to St. Louis. You know what this means? The only running back left in town is O.J. Simpson. You know that?
Talk show hosts are one thing, though. Surely they'd care at the Rams' old home.
Angel Red Sox lineups tonight's scorebook program.
But with the local baseball team now packing Anaheim, apparently no one did.
It's just like a racehorse, you know? It don't matter what stable he's going at, he's still not going to be a winner.
Over at the Coliseum, they'd already dismantled the pavilion end stand to make way for soccer. And although management are working on getting another team, they'd like different fans next time.
As vigorous in their rooting, yet not as dangerous in the stands.
But most Raiders fans weren't dangerous, just sort of dementedly devoted. And in Wayne Mabry, at least we'd found someone who cared.
My seat was here. This is where I sit. Yeah, I used to laugh at Al. Yeah, when they were goofing up. And I used to cheer like hell when we'd kick butt. That was the old way. Now my seat's gone. What am I supposed to do now? Stand here on concrete and look out at an empty field? I don't think so. I'll have to follow them wherever they go.
While Wayne's saving for the regular airfare to Oakland, the smart money is on Disney to eventually bring a team back to Los Angeles. They already own the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, an ice hockey team that started life as a spin-off from the film of the same name. So when the LA Lion Kings reached the Super Bowl in the year 2000, don't say we didn't warn you. For the moment, though, as far as football's concerned,
Bring the team out! But there's no team left.
Good evening, it's the final week of the NFL season, unless of course you left your video set to Monday night at 11 o'clock, in which case it's the final hour of A Musical Life of Henry Purcell. Now coming into this final weekend, there are 4 wildcard spots, 2 division titles and the precious home field advantage to be decided, and by the end of the show we'll have it all sorted out for you. Here at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, it's quite simple, or at least simple in theory. To snag the final NFC wildcard spot, all the Falcons have to do is win. Unfortunately for them, winning entails beating the Super Bowl champion San Francisco, who are in need of a victory themselves to secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Well, the 49ers have had the best season offensively of the 90s, 505 points, and Randy, you played on a great offense with Joe Montana. How good is this one?
I think this is the best offense they've ever had in San Francisco. It's an offense that is still not a power offense, but it has such good finesse with the skilled people they have that they can score points in big chunks and they can really score them at will. The offense is really much like their defense. You know, we talked about how they shored that defense up. It's still not a physical defense, and it's still a weak spot, I think, for the 49ers, especially against a powerful team like the Chargers.
Well, we talked in the VT about the addition of Deion Sanders, who hasn't just improved the defense, he's brought a different attitude. When you played, the 49ers were sort of like IBM, now they're more like Run DMC, it seems.
Exactly. Well, Bill Walsh's whole thing was, you know, act like you've done it before. You know, you don't have to show everybody you can slam a ball or do all these different things. Completely different. George Seifert's kind of turned the dogs loose, and they just go at it and go crazy. I don't like it. It's not my style, but it's also not my problem because I'm not playing.
Is it your style, Marv? Would you be worried if your team was this overbearingly confident?
Well, I think you can be too overconfident, and that may be a pitfall which the 49ers face going into today's game. They can't help but believe from all they've read and heard how wonderful they are, and I think they are that wonderful. Nevertheless, if they let that seep in too much, they could be in for a surprise.
Well, Kathy setting the early standard for Frank to match there with a fine performance. I'm sure the NFL are grateful, because with the national anthem being sung before every professional sporting contest in the country here, you can get some slightly strange interpretations. Here, with apologies to Marv, Randy, and any American expatriates tuning in, is what we mean.
Bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming,
And the Rockets, red flag. Uh-oh.
For starters this week, we've got Buffalo's Cornelius Bennett, a marauding linebacker who fancies himself as the Galloping Gourmet. The main course features Cornelius doing his Sunday job as the Bills take on the Patriots. And for afters, there's a choice. Pig out on the sweetest plays of the past month. Cleanse your palate with the saccharine-free story of Chicago Hope and the player who dispenses it. Better still, do both.
Hi, this is Chris Zorich of the Chicago Bears. You're watching Channel 4, the home of American football. Yeah!
The Arizona desert, indistinguishable from the Cardinals' trophy cabinet. And in Buddy Ryan's second season, there's no sign of that changing. There could be a change at coach, though, if Buddy doesn't start winning. And after some early drops, the Falcons, who were trailing to a couple of Greg Davis field goals, scored the game's first touchdown. Jeff George hit Eric Metcalf from 5 yards out to tie things at 6 in the second quarter, and the extra point would make it 7.
And now Morton Anderson, who doesn't miss extra points. We're trying to put Atlanta on top. Just like I said.
That broke a perfect streak of extra points for Anderson, stretching back to 1992, but he quickly got the chance to get another one going.
Picked off by Jesse Tuggle. He's all alone, and Atlanta now will take the lead.
That made it 13-6, and after a gift from the Cardinals' offense, the Falcons got one from their defense.
Quick throw, Royal Preston inside the 40, keeps his feet. Royal Preston inside the 20, he is gone. Touchdown Atlanta.
You know, as well as being the record 20th overtime game, that was also the third in a row for the Cardinals at home. And along with the Minnesota Vikings, they lead the league in overtime games this season with 4 apiece, including one against each other. All right, time for our competition now. And congratulations go out to Andrew and Sarah Beck from Bedfordshire, who won our Christmas bonus trip. They'll be in Buffalo on December the 17th for the Bills game against Miami, then off to New York for some Christmas shopping and a Broadway show. So that's the Christmas bonus trip gone, along with the double header and the triple header. So we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for prizes now. All we've got left to offer you is the Super Bowl. Pay attention for the next 90 seconds and you could be on your way to Phoenix. Arizona has the NFL's oldest existing franchise, the Cardinals, who kicked off in 1898 and thrived in the days when a forearm smash was still an acceptable defensive weapon. That wasn't in Arizona, of course, but Chicago, where the club spent its first 72 years. The high point of the franchise was 1947, when the $1 million backfield of Elmer Angsman, Charlie Trippi and Paul Chrisman led them to a championship. Since '48, when they went to the title game again and lost, though, they've only made 3 playoff appearances, all of them in their next home, St. Louis. Since moving to Arizona in 1988, the Cards haven't even managed a winning season. The stadium's not doing badly, though. It's the site of Super Bowl 30, and that's where you could be heading if you know your Cardinals' history, with tickets for the big game and a week to see the rest of the Arizona scenery. Weekly winners and runners-up divide the Blitz t-shirts, official NFL jackets in expansion team colours, football CD-ROMs from Virgin, and a year's subscription to First Down magazine. And here's this week's question. How did the Cardinals get their nickname? Call 0891 444 444 and tell us whether they're named after the bird, the shade of red, or the cleric. Lines, as ever, are open until midnight on Thursday. Last week's question concerned the number of wins the Cowboys managed in their first season, and it was none. You know, Cornelius Bennett, who ran back that interception for a touchdown in the first half, is known as Biscuit, apparently because when he was a kid the chocolate digestives were gone almost before they were out of his mother's shopping bag. Now, of course, he could probably afford a part steak in McVitie's, but these days Biscuit's tastes are a bit more sophisticated. In Buffalo, the world capital of the chicken wing, food is just something you leave your seat for at half-time, which is to say people in upstate New York are more interested in football by and large than fine dining. But one man is waging a crusade to take local food presentation beyond silver foil and styrofoam. Full-time inside linebacker and part-time gourmet, Cornelius Bennett.
Today on Cooking with the Cornelius, we're coming to you from Beox in downtown Buffalo with Eric Holbeck. Eric, what are we preparing today?
Tonight we are going to prepare a cassoulet, which is a very nice French bistro type fall and winter dish.
Cooking is something that I really enjoy. It's very relaxing for me. I can come home from a tough game and I'll get in the kitchen and I'll prepare a meal.
Not always his own kitchen, though. Being a professional footballer allows Cornelius to indulge his hobby on his own weekly television show, and it's a hobby he thinks he could have made a career out of.
I think I would have been a chef because it's like being a football player. I think you know, it's something that either you have it or you don't. I proved that I do have it on the football field, and from my cooking and from what the few people that have eaten my cooking have enjoyed it. So I think I could very well be a chef if I, you know, put my heart to it.
Welcome back to the Cornelius Bennett Show. We're out here at Chief Pickin. Our special guest tonight, Bruce Smith of the Buffalo Bills. He's with us.
On the field, Smith and Bennett have been thriving on a steady diet of raw meat for years, and they were the heart of the defence that took Buffalo to 4 Super Bowls. This season, though, Cornelius has been moved from his pass-rushing outside linebacker position to the inside by new defensive coordinator Wade Phillips, and he's been aching ever since.
The biggest problem is being able to wake up on Monday mornings after the football game. Being an outside linebacker, I didn't get beat up as much because all the plays were not directed towards me. Being an inside linebacker, I'm getting hit every play. I thought it was a good move for me in my career right now. I'm getting a little older, and you know, I still like to make things happen. I don't ever want people to say I'm past my prime or whatever. So anything to keep myself looking good and to help the Buffalo Bills at the same time, I'm willing to do it.
After 4 Super Bowl defeats and failing to make the playoffs last year, Marv Levy's team was written off this season. But like a half-time hot dog, they keep coming back.
Guys, I've said this 4 years in a row, but this year, we're not only going back to the big one, we're going to win it. Yeah. No one is leaving this room until we figure out how.
I think over the years, you know, people have learned to respect us. You know, now we're getting even more respect because people are finally realizing, especially you know, our peers, how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl.
Better give me one, too.
Hungry? Why wait?
Just once, Biscuit would like to be cooking a celebration meal instead of a consolation one come January. If he gets to the Super Bowl, perhaps they'll put Cassoulet Cornelius on the snack menu at Sun Devil Stadium for him.
Well, this is Cornelius Bennett here with Eric Holback at B-Ox, downtown Buffalo. This is Cooking with Cornelius. Thanks for joining in.
All right, this weekend takes us into the final month of the regular season. Time to look back now at the plays that merit replaying from the month just gone.
Go to reverse to Galloway. His speed turns the corner, and Galloway still not done. Cutting back the other way, gets a block. Galloway's in open field. He's across the 40. One man has an angle on him. A blocker's in front. Joey Galloway inside the 20. A brilliant block. And into the end zone is Joey Galloway.
Rolling right to the short side of the field, looking back the other way. He's going to get in. Hello. Flipping it. All right. Touchdown, Ernie Mills.
Looking to fire for the end zone. And it is caught. Touchdown! Touchdown for the Jets. Adrian Morrell on the deflection. Unbelievable. Draw Boyd and McNair. Got room to run. Fumbled the football. Picked up by Mark Collins.
You don't generally think of receivers as being good blockers because the bulk of their time is spent looking graceful for the highlight films. But when a play calls for blocking downfield, receivers are the logical choice because they're downfield before anyone else. On this play, Detroit's Brett Perryman lines up on the left side, with Barry Sanders in the backfield. And once the ball snapped, it'll be Perryman's job to take on the opposition's safety who's moved up to stop the run, while Sanders' other blockers clear the left side of the line for him. Here's Perryman lined up, and And as you'll see, he heads straight for number 22 and engages him long enough for Sanders to get outside. Unfortunately for Sanders, the Packers' defence is quick to react, forcing him back inside. But that's not Perriman's fault. He did his job the way it was drawn up by the coaches. And he does an even better job on his own initiative later in the game, when his teammate Herman Moore catches a ball across the middle. Watch the top of the screen, and you'll see Perriman sprint in from his wide position and impede the man most likely to catch Moore. The result is a Lions touchdown. On the replay, his contribution is even clearer. Perriman not only takes out number 33, he forces number 31 off his stride. The difference between a big catch and a scoring one. It's not a play that'll appear anywhere in Brett Perriman's stats at the end of the season, but it was well appreciated on the Lions sideline. Welcome back. Now, compared to sports at home, American football salaries are huge. I mean, every team in the league is fielding at least 10 millionaires. But contrary to the impression we might sometimes give, not all of them spend it buying their body weight in jewellery. A lot of players give back to the community, and it's not necessarily those who earn the most that do the most. Chicago's Chris Zorich grew up in a poor part of the city, and he now runs 5 separate charitable foundations. Here's how he spent his Thanksgiving holiday last week.
The area I lived in was basically black and Hispanic. And my mother's white, my father's black. My mother and father were never married, and as soon as my mom found out she was pregnant, she told my father and he left, so I've never even seen my father before. Yeah, so it was pretty rough growing up. My mom got mugged a lot. I got beat up a lot, but I had a mom that was kind of a super mom. She did everything she could to make my life better. We used to go there when they were passing out the food, the 5-pound blocks of government cheese, the boxes of low-fat milk. I always promised myself that if I could ever help anybody else out, I would. After it, on the phone, talked to my mom and everything. I was like, Mom, we lost. And she was like, yeah, but you played well. You got MVP. And I was like, but Mom, we lost by 1 point. She's like, yeah, but you played well. And we always hang up with each other by saying bye. I would say, bye, Mom, I love you. She would say, bye, honey, I love you too. And that's how I hung up. I flew back here to Chicago. She wasn't at the airport. That got me very nervous. I rushed home. There was no answer at either our back door or our front door. I broke down our back door and found my mom's body lying in the hallway. She had a heart attack. Thus, the Zora Zorich Scholarship, the Christopher Zorich Foundation, everything that I am and I ever will be is going to be in her honor.
We got up at about 5 o'clock in the morning one morning, went to a local grocery store. He bought all the food himself. We loaded it on to one van, and we took about 16 hours on a Tuesday, which was his day off, and delivered it door to door, and still didn't get everything done. So we had to get up the next day and do it the next day.
People got interested, started calling up. He started going to talk to them. So now we had about 25, 27 wonderful sponsors that help us.
Now, gosh, we're up to 297 families. It's very exciting to see photos from the first food drive, and now to see the ones that we're doing now. It's like night and day.
The greatest thing about this is going to the house and actually giving the turkey and giving the food to the family and seeing what it really does to people when you do help out.
It's the embodiment of what Chris does. He's giving back to the community in which he's from. Gets all the committee together to volunteer, or the community together to volunteer. It's great.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming out, man. Appreciate it.
He touches people from all different types of religions, races, colors, ethnic cultures. I mean, rich people, poor people.
I think Chris is really an inspiration, and I wish there were a lot more celebrity/sports figures like him. If there were more like him, this world would be a better place. Chicago's very lucky to have him.
Here's the box? Yes. All right, you got it? Okay. I like it because I'm out there hanging out with the kids. I'm out there delivering the food baskets, and that's the person my mom was. She was a very giving person, and she always gave 100% of herself, and that's just what I'm trying to do.
This means a lot to us because not many people do this. Not many people come to the south side or west side. Not a lot of people come around, especially like he's a bear. They don't come around that, and this is the first time that it's happened to us. He helps a lot, and we really do appreciate it because sometimes we really do need it.
The most exhilarating thing for me is when I have a chance to talk to one of these young kids that have spent some time with. You know, that young kid can look and say, well, hey, you know, there were times when he didn't have food in the house. You know, he had to go to bed early like I did. I could remember going to bed at 6 o'clock in the evening because I can get up in the morning and go to school and get a hot breakfast. He could say, well, hey, if he did it, I can do it.
Chicago took a 3-game losing streak into Giant Stadium and they fell behind, but Jeff Graham's beautiful one-handed catch made it 14 apiece at half-time. And midway through the fourth quarter, it was the Giants who needed a touchdown to square things and got one on Rodney Hampton's 2-yard run. With 7 seconds left, the Bears drove into field goal range.
Butler's kick is good from 37.
The Gary Cam view of what it's like to interview an NFL player. Mind you, everyone in the NFC West is looking up to the 49ers again, even though the Rams made the mistake of taking an early lead on Todd Kinchin's 2-yard touchdown catch and annoying the Super Bowl champions by beating up their goalpost. San Francisco responded with 4 interceptions, including 1 for a touchdown, and Steve Young, back from injury, hit rookie J.J. Stokes for the first 2 touchdowns of his career.
Anthony Parker was blocked out on the play, and Stokes scores a 16-yard touchdown.
There were 7 fumbles in this game, and that's not including the fan competition at half-time. In fact, the highlight of the game was a rare triple fumble. First the Panthers' Kerry Collins, then the Panthers' Frank Garcia, and finally, after he gets a bit overconfident with the ball, the Saints' Vince Buck. And the end result is that Carolina keep possession, hardly worth bothering. In the end, New Orleans held onto the ball long enough to get 2 rushing touchdowns out of Mario Bates and this 35-yarder out of Derrick Brown, and that was enough to win. After their poor start to the season, the Eagles are emerging as genuine playoff contenders. They won 6 out of 7 going into RFK Stadium, and 2 touchdowns from Ricky Waters, who had another big game, were enough to see them past the Redskins. Washington had trouble moving the ball all game, and the home fans booed Heath Schuler on his return to the lineup at quarterback. By the way, only Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith have now rushed for more yards than Waters. Barbecue weather in Green Bay, which is anything above -10. But despite the snow at Lambeau Field, fans at the Robert Brooks Memorial Mosh Pit end were out early, staking a place for their hero.
Barr looking for the home run ball to Brooks, and he will score. No penalty flags on the play.
Unfortunately, they weren't in tune with the Packers' play calling. In the second quarter, Brooks went 54 yards into the left-hand corner of the end zone. And in the fourth, Brett Favre sent him in the same direction from 3 yards away. Favre finished with 3 touchdown passes, and Brooks finished up in the crowd as usual. The Packers put the Buccaneers' playoff hopes into perspective for them and sent the Cheeseheads home happy. Now, the old Green Bay Cheesehead has been #1 in the stupid fan headwear chart for years, but if you're flying to Wisconsin in the near future, don't be surprised to see it feature in the in-flight safety demonstration, because last Sunday, Packers fan Frank Emmett was involved in a plane crash and credits his Cheesehead with saving him from serious injury.
Instead of putting it on the top of my head, I just stuck it right on the front, you know, so it absorbed my mouth or my whole face, you know, and I held on to it for impact, so that's what protected me. It's just like a big old pillow sticking out front, you know. So that, I was real fortunate there. So from now on, when I go flying, I'll always take a Packer cheese hat.
By the way, crash investigators say that Frank's friend, the pilot of the two-seater plane, wasn't wearing a cheese head, and he's still in hospital recovering from head injuries. I think there's a message there for all of us. By the way, following an incident at the Packers game, the league is considering new measures to protect quarterbacks from officials with autograph books.
It's pretty frustrating. You know, that referee came in the locker room before the game and asked me for about 5 autographs, and I signed them for him. And I said, you know, give us some good calls today. He said, oh, yeah, you know, I will take care of you. And I told him, after about that third holding call, I told him I want my autographs back.
The only people not laughing about the incident are the NFL. They're taking disciplinary action against the linesman involved for violating proper officiating procedure. Good job he didn't ask Hardy Nickerson for his autograph before the game. The refs ended up throwing out the Bucs linebacker for this open-handed slap on Frank Winters, which was in retaliation for a push. Now you might ask what the difference is between that offence and this one by Deion Sanders. Or this one by Deion Sanders. Or even this one last season by Deion Sanders. Well, the answer is nothing, except that Deion stayed on the field in every instance. Now, far be it from us to suggest that Deion has his big biro out in the tunnel before every game signing posters for the ref's grandson, but rumour has it that he's the only Cowboys player whose shirt has a pen pocket. Of course, one way to avoid being penalised is the sneaky hit as you're coming off the field, like the Raiders' Vince Evans, who conveniently leaves his arm at neck height after being intercepted by San Diego's Dwayne Harper. The sneakiest move of the season, though, if he'd gone through with it, would have been by an assistant college coach in a recent game between Virginia and Virginia Tech, with his team intercepted in the dying seconds and the opposition player running the ball back for a touchdown. Watch this bloke on the sideline as he puts his foot out for the trip and then thinks better of it. Would have been the player of the year. All right, let's finish the roundup now, starting with the game that put Vince Evans in such a bad mood, Oakland at San Diego. Jeff Hostetler's injured shoulder kept him on the sideline for this one, which meant Vince got his second start of the season at quarterback for the Raiders. It wasn't a good one. He threw 3 interceptions, all of them to Dwayne Harper.
Evans has it, picked up Harper again. 3 tonight for Harper.
The Raiders couldn't muster a touchdown, neither could San Diego, but they won it 4-2 on field goals. This game started with a field goal, they got out of control. Broncos rookie Terrell Davis had a 60-yard touchdown run, answered by a 74-yard ramble from his opposite number, Rodney Thomas. And when Anthony Miller caught a 50-yard pass from John Elway, Oilers rookie Chris Sanders replied with touchdown catches of 35 and 36 yards as Houston won a 75-point game. The Jets took the league's worst record into Seattle, and by the end they'd worked themselves up to equal worst with the Redskins and Giants. Adrian Morrell's 2-yard run was their only touchdown of the game, but along with 3 Nick Lowry field goals, proved enough to see them past the Seahawks. Dan Marino went into this game with 2 records on his mind, the Dolphins' disappointing 6 wins and 5 losses, and the all-time NFL record of 343 touchdown passes. In the end, only 1 was under his control.
Myers goes in. Marino has the record.
A great personal achievement for Dan, spoiled by his team's continued slide out of playoff contention. A second-half safety was the ultimate indignity for Marino as the Colts completed the double over Miami. With only 2 home games left before Baltimore becomes home, the death watch continues in Cleveland, and the Browns are playing like a team that's already given up the ghost. Their first 2 plays ended up in the hands of the Steelers' Willie Williams, an interception and a fumble recovery. Both led to points, a field goal, and this Neil O'Donnell pass to Mark Bruner. Another field goal 7 seconds into the final quarter, put Pittsburgh ahead for good, and they ran the clock out to seal the Browns' 4th consecutive defeat. Steve Berline was back in at quarterback for Jacksonville in place of the injured Mark Brunell. It opened up with a 31-yard touchdown pass to Jimmy Smith. The Jags led 13-10 until the last minute. And Carl Pickens, who'd been smothered all day, got free to catch the winner from Jeff Blake. The first game of Week 14 was on Thursday in Arizona. The Cards couldn't reproduce their form from the Falcon game. And the Giants won it on Mike Sherrod's 12-yard catch to get a leg up on the Jets and the Redskins.
I got one thing to say, this is my house. I built this and this is my house.
Of course, as it turned out, Dion was only renting. Last year he deserted the Falcons for the 49ers, and this season he left San Francisco for Dallas. As luck and the NFL schedule would have it, he makes his Cowboys debut this week in his old house against his old team. And you know what happened last time he came home?
Hey, we got some duking going on. Andre Rison and Deion Sanders. Well, I guess they are talking to one another now. Yeah, I think they finally said something.
Last year, the Falcons didn't use Dion's number 21, then they didn't really have a player who could wear it and get away with it. This year, they have. Eric Metcalf is leading the league in catches, and like the previous occupant of his jersey, he's a run-back threat too. 21 lines up against 21 in the Georgia Dome on Sunday. Things could get interesting. Dallas at Atlanta is our pick of the Week 9 fixtures. Here's the full lineup. So for Halloween weekend, Deion Sanders will be putting on his second new costume in as many seasons and coming back to haunt his old house. And if that's not enough to scare the Falcons, the word out of Dallas is that the Cowboys have 4 or 5 plays in the game plan that feature him as a wide receiver. That's Deion the sequel, Monday night at 11:05. Viewer discretion is advised.